Wayne Dyer said that all blaming is a waste of time. No matter how much fault you can find with another, and regardless of how much you might blame them, it will not change you. The only thing blame does is to keep the focus off of you. If you look for external reasons to explain your happiness or frustration, you'll never learn about yourself. You might succeed in making another person feel guilty about something by blaming them, but you won't succeed in changing whatever it is about you that is making you unhappy. And Theodore Roosevelt said that if you could kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your trouble, you probably wouldn't be able to sit down for a month. Well, hello and welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast. Today we're discussing blame and the stories that we tell ourselves. I've got a brilliant guest called Mike, who is the founder of Lumen Research. It's a behavioral expertise company with some fascinating insights on humans and how we think, along with some of Mike's own personal stories of disasters and how to learn from them by taking ownership. So Lumen Research is actually an eye tracking company mainly in the marketing and advertising space. But from the lessons of observing people and how they think, there's some really profound insights into human behavior. And we'll talk a bit about the details of that first before going into some of the more broader lessons and interesting stories of life and how to take ownership in disaster. This is such a cool interview. I can't wait for you to listen to it.
So Lumen is an attention technology company. We use eye tracking to work out what people look at and what people ignore. And we serve mainly the marketing and advertising business. And one of the interesting things that we've learned is that one of the things that people are particularly good at ignoring is ads. And this comes as a surprise to people who work in ads, because if your mortgage depends on making ads or buying ads or selling ads, then you take ads really, really seriously. But if you're not in the ad business, then you know intuitively that ads just aren't very important. And it turns out that from the data that we collect through the eye tracking, around about 82% of the ads that we could see get ignored. And so I go around town helping explain this fact to the industry so that they understand it, and then helping advertisers and publishers optimize what they do to get more attention and better results.
So how do you optimize then? Seems like if you just make the ad look better, or?
Well, exactly. There's two ways of doing it. Ads are always seen in context. So you never see an ad on its own. It's always in a newspaper or on a blog or on a TV program. So the first thing we do is measure the average attention levels that advertising on different sites or in different formats gets. And that could be helpful. Big ads get more attention than small ads. Video ads get more attention than static ads and so on. And so we collect all that information and build sort of predictive models of attention based on the actual type of ads. But the second thing is, you're quite right, is that we can both be exposed to the same type of ad. But if one is a really good ad and the other is a really bad ad, then you look at more on one or the other. And so we help creative agencies test the ads that they're making so that they understand, is it the one with the kitten, or is it one with the puppy that gets the most attention, or is it the one with the red car or the blue car, and things like that. But there's actually a third thing which makes a difference, which is who the ad is targeted at. And certainly when it comes to digital advertising nowadays, that's really how people like Facebook and Google make their money. They know quite a lot about you from all the data that you put into Facebook. They know that you run a podcast or something like that. And so you'll get served a load of ads about audio equipment or, marketing or whatever. Whereas I'll get served, they know that I'm a managing director. And that means that I'm probably going bald and I have a weight problem. So I get a lot of ads about diabetes and hair loss, neither of which are relevant at the moment. But anyway, so the third thing is that we can work out how all that targeting stuff makes a difference to attention. So it's about the context, it's about the creative, and it's about the targeting.
Cool. Can you just quickly tell me about how you got into that sort of space?
I used to make ads for a living. After university, I was a teacher for a while, and then I got a job in advertising. I worked in London, and then in New York, and then in Mumbai. And I came back from India. I worked for Tesco's ad agency. And I can remember one day then asking, well, new guy, what do you think our ad should look like? Should they be really busy with loads and loads of offers in them? Or should they be really, really simple? And I said, well, don't you know this? I mean, you've been at this for a while. And they said, no, well, everyone's got an opinion. So I said, well, I think they should be really, really simple. I think that's probably the best way to do it. And so basically on a whim, they changed the ads to be really, really simple. And for the first week, sales were really, really good. And I thought, God, I'm good at this. I know what I'm doing now. And then 2 weeks later, sales began to crash a bit. And obviously, it wasn't anything to do with the change in the ads. It was something else. And I haven't been the savior. But what I realized was the thing is, everyone does have an opinion about this. You know, you can make an argument for it to be busy or for complicated or simple or elegant. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool just to know how people actually engage with it rather than ask their opinion or trust your own gut? Wouldn't it be good just to observe how attention acts? And eye tracking had been around for a while, but there were a couple of innovations that I helped work with a company who had some eye tracking cameras. And I thought, well, actually, this is how you should set up the study to get the answer that we're interested in. It wasn't really a technical innovation, but it was about sort of how you set up the studies. If you're really interested in answering this type of study for an advertiser, this is how you should set up the study. And so we did that for Tesco, and it turned out that it was a mixture of simple and busy in different ways. We went back to Tesco and told them this. As I was telling them about it, I suddenly thought, this is really interesting. I really like this. I really like not being nervous about making an argument. Usually when you're an advisor or a consultant, you're paid for your opinion. So you come up with your opinion and they should justify it like a barrister or something like that. And that's terrifying because you have to convince someone else. Whereas this time it was just like, A is better than B. A got more attention than B and people like it. And then you go, oh, I don't have to bullshit anymore. It's just the evidence.
Yeah.
And I thought, and so that was it. You know, that's how I got into it. And then so the guys that had done the original research, we said, well, why don't we start a new company? And I went off to do an MBA, which was largely a waste of time. You know,
with the good ask.
But anyway, I got out of the MBA and started a company. It actually happened and it was all up and running. And then you think, well, you might as well give it a go. And that's how we got into it, really. But actually, you know what happened very, very quickly is that there's a big difference between knowing that you've got a solution and being able to deliver the solution. It's okay having a vision, but you have to be able to do something with the vision. And after about 3 weeks of working full time on the company, I realized that I was never going to be good enough to do all of this stuff on my own. And of course, that's a stupid thing to have thought. I mean, it's just so naive to think you could have done it on your own. Yeah. But I really, really, suddenly, when people were asking me to just do quite simple modeling of the data, it was totally beyond me. I knew that it could be done. I could sort of picture, I'm sure there were going to be graphs, you know, bar charts and stuff like that. And what was interesting is after about 3 weeks, I realized that we'd have to get some proper petitions. And my friend David had just given up his job as a statistician and was going off to India on holiday. And I said, well, when you come back from India, why, this is what we're doing. Why do you? And he went away on holiday for a while. I think he wanted to get out of advertising. He'd been working as a statistician in advertising. But the allure of doing something new and different, and he came on board. And suddenly this sort of, you know, really airy fairy sort of ethereal, oh, it could be this, it could be that. Having the right people right here as part of the team, suddenly you think they brought their own vision to it. And then when David and I were sort of doing all this stuff, and I'll tell you the story in a second, but we were sort of dependent on a load of other people's software. And I can remember phoning these guys up and saying, listen, if we could do this and this, our system would be much, much better. Can you help us do that? And these guys were up in Scotland and they said, well, we really want to get into gaming. That's what we really want to do. And I was thinking, oh God, what are we going to do? And then you realize, well, when you've got a problem, there's always someone with a solution. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean that someone can't do it. So we sort of went out and found our friend, my really good friend now, Navid, who's one of the sort of technical directors. And again, we thought that we knew what we were talking about. You find the right person, you realize, no. And I know that you realized the problem, but you didn't have a clue what the solution was. And every time we've sort of grown like that, but new people coming in that have transformed the company. So we sort of knew what we were doing from day one, but not really, you know, it's sort of grown and developed.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds really good, the way you've acknowledged the problems that you have as a founder and how much help you can get from other people suddenly. Do you have a good example of the biggest thing that went wrong, maybe?
I suppose that this is a two-part story. So when we got the gang together, it was me and then David, the statistician, and then Navid, the eye tracking expert, and then my friend Matt joined to be operations director. And more and more people joined, and we also had some employees. After day one, a chap called Theo joined, and he's been part of the company for 5 years now, and so it's got bigger and bigger as a company with everyone adding a bit. But for about 2.5 years or 3 years, we were always totally dependent on one supplier to actually collect all this eye tracking data. And I won't tell you their name because they're bastards. But we knew that we were totally dependent on them, and we could make all the software and we can do everything around it. We would have to have these special eye tracking cameras, and they were the people who produced these best cameras. So I went over to see them. They're in Scandinavia, and told them what we're doing. And they got quite excited about this. No one's ever used the cameras like this before. They came over here, we came over there, and this is an area that they thought they could go into and all that. And we thought that we could partner with them properly. And then they started asking to talk to our customers, which is sort of like a prelude to like buying the company. So that's pretty impressive, And we were only about 2 years old, and we thought we were going to sell the company and all that. Anyway, the president of the company comes over to see us. I think it's the 3rd or 4th time. And we have this backwards and forwards. We show them our books and all that. And he goes, well, guys, you've got a really interesting company here. And this was at the end of a long day, so 2 doors down from where we're sitting. And said, it's got a really interesting company today. But I've got 3 things to say to you. Okay. And I was like, they're smiling, waiting for it, just imagining and now is the moment where we'd like to make an offer with the company and everything. And he said, well, the first thing is, we think that your software is really quite shit. We hadn't shown him our software. Our software is quite clever, and we deliberately didn't want to tell him because we've got patents and stuff like that. He said, well, we don't know what your software is, but we assume it must be crap because we've been doing this for years and you kind of got further than us. So we don't think it's very good at all. We're going to bring out some new software ourselves, which is going to destroy your software. So just saying. And then the second thing is that we're quite worried about privacy, not with you, but say with the Chinese government or something like that. So what we've done is our cameras now have a kill switch. If ever we find anyone who is abusing them, like the Chinese government says, we'll just turn them off, and that'll be. But of course, that does mean that we can turn off the cameras that you've got. So just to remind you, we could just kill your company if we wanted to. And the third thing is, we think that you're in the same business as us, so we don't see you as a partner, as a supplier, but as a threat. So what we'd really like you to do, chaps, is we don't want to buy the company. Could you close your company down, and then we'll give you jobs, and you could be the London arm of our company. And I just sort of sat there for a while, and I thought, I have made a terrible mistake. I have made oh God, what have I done? And I looked around, and all these people who had joined the company, with this vision, and we always knew that we had this dependence on this company. But I thought that all these conversations I've been having, and I've been charming and lovely, and I didn't realize that what we'd done is we'd put our head inside the lion's mouth. And so I felt so guilty. All these people had left jobs, these young people had started straight out of university, and now we were just going to become the sort of London office of a Scandinavian engineering firm. And it just thought, So I said, well, listen, guys, why don't we give you an answer tomorrow? Why don't you go back up to the airport? And it was chucking it down outside. And I can remember feeling just awful and just so guilty. And so that was the biggest mistake that we've ever made, this. And she said, oh, I bet they're bluffing. And I went, no, you didn't look deep into their pale blue eyes. These people aren't bluffing. And I went, oh, I bet they're bluffing. Anyway, what you should do is show some sizzle. She's Finnish. And there's this Finnish word, sizzle, which means sort of toughness. SISU. And it is the most important word which is just, because the Finns have always been this tiny little country with the big, Russia and Sweden and people like that. In the Second World War, the whole of the Russian Empire, Stalin invaded, and they defeated the Russians. Tiny little Finland And they, so Cecil is a finished thing. They're rock hard. And I thought, yeah, let's give it a go. Hey, the next day came in and Navid, the tech guy, was just saying, yeah, no, we're in trouble if we use this. We're really in trouble if we carry on. But I've got an idea. I've been working on some software that turns your webcam into an eye tracking camera, and I've got it working. And I just do it in my spare time. But I think we could do this. And I already tried it out, and it didn't work very well, but it worked. And then suddenly we had another plan, which was didn't need these horrible people anymore. We could just develop our own thing. And then that made me think that actually was the stupidest thing that we've ever done. Why didn't we do this before? Why didn't we have a plan to run our own company rather than be dependent on someone else's stuff? And so I just felt even more stupid and guilty that we hadn't done it before.
That's so cool. That sometimes it does take just a really high pressure situation to bring that out into our heads, and maybe if it hadn't come out with that, you could have carried on running the business suboptimally, more years.
And then we really would be dependent. I mean, there are so many problems with the way that we had been doing it. But you convince yourself that this is the only way of doing it. That you've got this sort of dependency, this constraint. We are a company that uses these special cameras to do that. And then when clients will come to us and say, do you have to use the cameras? Do you have to? Yeah, that's the constraint. It's the cameras. And then you have a jolt like that. And then you think, hold on a second. Why was I limiting myself to this?
It's quite similar to us. We've been dependent on printing suppliers that we've been using their APIs, and things have been breaking, or they've doing unreliable stuff. And it's our biggest worry is when people order things is that the suppliers aren't going to mess it up, and we're now kind of taking it in-house, and it's we can just do whatever the hell we want and it's perfect, and we can give them a demo on the day, and it's ideal, and
and then you
should have done that straight away.
Yeah. And then think the things that are going to be really, sometimes these barriers to, it has to work like this because it's impossible to do it the other way around. Well, it's not that impossible. That said, the things that you thought were going to be easy, they do turn out to be impossible.
Yeah. So is there any major advice you'd give to yourself 5 years ago, or if I was in a similar position to you that you were in, that you'd tell me now?
Well, 5 years ago when we started the company, I don't know, because I was thinking about this, what advice I would have given myself 10 years ago when I was working for a big ad agency. And I thought then the highest point in my life would be to run a big ad agency and to get higher and higher and higher up the greasy pole and stuff like that. And you go, what can I do to impress my boss, to do this, to get this and that? Yeah. And I just look back on that as just so much wasted time, that I desired the wrong thing. I had the wrong goal. It was making me really, really unhappy. I didn't know why I was so unhappy. And I asked myself to really think about your goals, why you have these things. When I started the company 5 years ago, I think I would have told myself, get realistic about the timelines. The assumption is that it's going to be a massive success really, really quickly. You don't want to be it's like the Long March to Moscow or something like that. This is going to be hideous for years and years and years. And it hasn't been, is it? But what does tend to happen is that you think, well, this time next year, we'll have a New York office. Or this time next year, it's going to be so difficult because I'm just going to be going from Tokyo to and you go, no, this time next year, I'm still going to be in North London. and knowing that is quite important because you spend such a long time going, am I where I should be? Are we making the progress we need? It's so myself, I'm so unhappy in that because you've got this sort of stupid timeline in your mind. It's not going to make you work any harder. You're not going to, if you're starting a company, you're going to be working really hard anyway. But the last thing you need is people on your own conscience on your back going, you're not where you should be. You should be further along. You promised yourself that this time next year you'd be a millionaire and you're not. Again. Yeah. And that, that's what I would have told myself.
I was in a business with a founder who kind of seemed to think that a normal person's level of achievement for the next 2 years was going to happen over the weekend. And constantly, it was just the most depressing thing. You just never get anything done, and it's just generally always planning for 2 years' time's worth of stuff. So you're just wasting time in conversations about things that aren't going to happen for ages. Then what is the kindest thing that anyone has ever done for you?
Sometimes Sometimes the kindest thing is people being really honest about stuff. People have been kind to me all my life. I'm one of the luckiest people I know. I'm a recipient of lots of love and luck. But for the company, one of the things, the easiest things to do is when you're starting a company, you go in with your idea. If you I've got this idea to do this. And your friends or your contacts or whoever are giving you their time, and they don't want to piss all over your idea. They're really nice, they're supportive, they want to be really helpful. A warm, nice, nurturing environment. But my friend Abba isn't like that at all. She's marketing director of this really cool company called Habito, or Habinto, or something like that. They're a really cool company. She's gone off to be marketing director of that. And she came in to work with us for a while. And one of the kindest things that she did was just to say, listen, stop believing your own hype or your own story. You have to change. You have to do something, And she sort of sat me down and said, I know that you want someone to tell you good news. I know you're under lots of pressure and so on. Please just stop. It was the hardest, but the kindest thing. And we went off in a different direction because of that. And I think now I was about to make a very stupid decision. I mean, this was before these companies had told us. We were on the verge of buying loads and loads more of their kit. And she talked me out of that before, and it was the kindest thing.
So, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for Mike coming on the show, and I love the lessons from him on the importance of the stories that we tell ourselves and how they can make us less or more of who we are. Aspiring to unrealistic goals can make us depressed, yet equally, if we look too much at the negative side of our real failures, it can also bring us down in the moments when we have the opportunity to actually rise and try harder. So thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you learned something new today. As a podcaster myself, I could choose to believe that if no one was to post a positive review this week, that I'm just a complete failure. Or I could believe that my listeners were all just too happy listening to great podcasts to stop and write how fantastic the show is. So whether you do leave a review this week or not, I'm still going to be very happy. A good review would help other people find the show and all of those other things that you'll probably hear every day about leaving a review that is said on every single podcast ever. And it's kind of surprising that podcasters still bother to mention the fact that leaving reviews is a good thing, because I don't know what's wrong with podcasters. Why do we keep saying it? It doesn't make a difference. Really now. Anyway, moving on. Life is about enjoying yourself, and that starts today. Now. So, be your own best friend and be nice to yourself. And whilst you're at it, be kind to someone else too.